You're listening to the RE Social Podcast with your hosts, Andrew and Vince from OnV Invest. For more information, go to onvinvest.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of RE Social Podcast. Today, we have a Newport local, Christian White, actually the founder of Newport Social Group. How are you, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Good, man. Thanks for coming on. I know we had to reschedule a couple of times, but for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give like a 90-second intro?
Sure. I am originally from Central California, and I was in the naval service for a period of time. And after leaving the Navy, I segued into commercial real estate, did that both on the brokerage side and as a private lender. And have also been in the real estate game, particularly in the midterm rental space, like with traveling professionals. And now I'm looking to focus on more of a mixed use sort of a play.
Oh,
that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. Good, man. I didn't know you were involved in midterm stuff. So do you do arbitrage mostly?
I do arbitrage mostly. Well, what I'm doing right now is basically having a single family home and renting it by the room. So just
nice.
Yeah, and mostly I was catering it to the traveling nurses during the pandemic.
I have to ask, did you use your VA loan yet?
I did actually, and I'm happy to kind of unpack that a little bit. Or I'm trying to think how to piece it here. So basically, I got stationed in Lemoore, California, which I don't know where anyone is. Actually, where they filmed the second Top Gun. Actually, it's kind of out in the boonies. And I was in, where was I? I was in Texas at the time for training. I was a corpsman. And for those who aren't aware, that's basically a medical tech / fill in the blank for the Navy. And I had wanted to go to San Diego. And they said, hey, if you're in a leadership role while you're in class, we're going to give you first dibs with the detailer. The detailer, for those who aren't aware, is basically the person who chooses your destiny or plays a big role in it. And I said, I want to go to San Diego. I want to, get back to what I was doing down there previously. And long story short, they sent me to Lemoore, and I was like, well, who the hell did I piss off? And it's really it's out in the boonies, but a lot of great people out there, and it was a good experience. So I'm sharing this with you because I went, when you're in the Navy, you're in kind of like a dorm, I want to say, kind of setup depending on the base and what group you're with. And so at the time I was, 20, 24, 23, I received what they call BAH, basic allowance housing. And a lot of guys, when they do get it, they usually go get an apartment out in town. And my thought process was, and I didn't know a damn thing about real estate, by the way. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, I want to go just get a place, like buy a house. And was born and raised about an hour away in the Clovis, Fresno area. And so, was very familiar with it, had contacts down there. And so I bought a home at the time. And again, not knowing, that I was getting it at a good basis. And subsequently after the refi, a pretty damn good interest rate. And so the all-in cost I think I put in was like $12,000. That's like all the closing costs. And for those of you who aren't aware, who are listening, it's kind of a misnomer when they say for the VA loan, like no down payment. Well, yeah, technically there's no down payment, but of course it's like the same. Yeah. There's no such thing as a free lunch. They weave it into so got the place as a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2007 vintage. And, basically was, was living there and then doing this commute each hour. And then long story short, moved out and then started doing the rent by the room. Was inspired by a couple of friends of mine who are nurse practitioners. They're in CRNA school actually. And they said, hey, you should be renting it out by the room, go on furnish finders. And this is the way. And it wasn't enough to where I'm like Mr. Monopoly man, if you will, but it was a pretty good return. I think it's at least a 30% cash on cash return. I don't have the numbers out in front of me, but to have that. And of course, a lot of these nurses, they're getting a stipend. And so I just saw a real influx in the rates. Now they've obviously have come down since the pandemic has subsided, of course. But that was really my first taste of like, blood, if you will. I was like, okay, I like this.
Sounds like you kind of did what is usually the opposite of most people getting started in real estate, which is just get your face caved in financially. One
Mhm.
mistake after another. I unfortunately just was talking with a friend today who was getting into it and had some basically pretty by the book like mistakes. And it
Mhm.
sounds to me like you kind of came out a winner on your first try. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I would say just kind of sheer luck. I mean, I feel like being in an area where there's it's a lot more affordable, Central California
Mhm.
compared to
Right.
obviously parts of the Bay Area or SoCal. I bought the place that I have for 275, 2007 master
Hmm.
plan community. Where is anyone going to find that, let alone today? And obviously, that was in a place like Newport that'd be 1.2 something to
Yeah.
that tune. And so just the basis, and I feel like this is a little tangent, but I feel like in some respects, being in an area that's outside of the major metros, even if you're just like an hour away, it's a lot easier to get in the game, of course, just like if you're going
Yeah.
out of state and
Right.
start to build wealth. I had capital previously, so technically I didn't need the VA loan, but why not?
Nice. Yeah.
I used it, and and again, I didn't know anything about real estate. Something just told me like I just want to go buy a place, and I was able to get in the game. Versus if I was in SoCal at the time, I'd have to save a good amount and such in order to pull the trigger on something. So knock on wood, I'm hoping my luck continues.
So you're looking for a second play of what you've got going on right now, which you're still successfully running, right?
That's correct. That's
And
correct. And I pivoted from traveling professionals to more, since that kind of petered out, to more people who are local who, for one reason or another, whether they're divorcees or hey, they just, they don't qualify for an apartment or for whatever. It's still a market rate tenant. Um, but yeah, it's been, thankfully a pretty good run so far.
are you looking to do it in the same area you're in now where you're seeing success? Or are you going to try to be, right now we're in Orange County for anyone listening, which is a little, I would say it's about a 4 hour drive from probably where you started. And it's a lot
Mhm.
more expensive here as it's closer to the ocean. Is that kind of the aim? What's the 1 to 5 year plan?
Yeah, certainly. Getting a property, in Newport, anything coastal there. Obviously, they're not making any more land, so. And of course, we're seeing prices go up, and I'm always under the impression that people complain about prices now, no matter where you are. But I surmise it's only going to keep getting more and more expensive. Not only with the population increase, but also with all the. And I actually spoke with an estimator about a month ago. All the added costs going on with the green things that builders are having to incorporate, energy wise, solar. That's then passed on to the consumer. So in the immediacy, I'm actually looking at an acquisition that's about 30 minutes from Yosemite.
Nice.
Yep.
Love Yosemite. I was up there a couple of years ago. That's awesome. And is it going to be
Yeah.
kind of like a cabin, like vacation stay, or what's the play?
Yeah. So I'm looking to do kind of a mid to long term play. And if I could take a step back here, one of my mentors who I met through the thousands of cold calls that I made in commercial brokerage. I was a multifamily broker at Cushman. I met at one call. It's kind of it's always amazing how it's just one call that you make and you make a friend. And he kind of took me under his wing and was really showing me the ropes, even as I was learning as a broker, a lot of little nuances. And recently, he's got, not this is a new thing to your audience per se, but sober living, having 2 to 3 people to a room, the group home, and so I actually took a course on that to kind of educate myself. But what I'm planning to do, segueing back to your question, what I'm planning to do is kind of the sober living, but do that with market rate people. And what I've been doing is I've been testing the market first. I will put out ads, whether that's on a roomies.com, which I have found a lot of success with that app, with that website, furnish finders, or Facebook Marketplace. And I've found, and I've done this because I put ads on there. Hey, I'm looking to have a place available in 6 to 8 weeks. I'm looking to have it priced at this much. Let me know if you're interested, kind of thing. Basically, pre-selling before I buy the property to make sure that especially in an area that I'm not super intimately familiar with, so I don't, buy a property and then sit on it because I don't have anyone to rent it out to. So what I have found in my findings, at least over here, and I suspect this is the same in many other parts of the country or world, is there is a niche demographic who is willing to put their ego aside and willing to share a room with someone, or two, or even up to two other individuals by just having a bed. And I know there's a company up in LA that's been kind of doing this, and SF, but I am finding it's not even like a down on your luck kind of crowd. It's even like where there's a college kid or even someone older who's on a fixed income, and they're like, hey, I just need a place to put my head down at night. And I put an ad. I literally had 103 messages from people. This is on Facebook. I was so overwhelmed. I was just like, I don't even want to like look at it. So
that's a really smart play for anyone listening. I remember reading about that in 4 Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss. Is that where you picked that up to like test a business?
Pre-sale.
First?
I actually picked it up from Noah Kagan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I picked
him. Sound familiar?
Yeah,
$7 million weekend. $1 million.
I picked it up to come up with my next business idea. That ended up being the landscape business, which I thought was complementary to real estate. Plus, you meet people, and he kept hammering to the audience, both on YouTube and on his book. He kept saying pre-sale, 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 and just and kind of like my mentor says. He says, shoot, ready, aim, kind of thing. And I'm kind of in the middle where now I try and be a little more prepared. A little more buttoned up instead of just shoot from the hip, like just go. But obviously there's a time and a place, but that's what I really picked up on was test the market, make sure you have a bunch of people lined up. So then when you go in, you're uber confident, and it just, people feel it in your tone when you're talking to brokers or you're trying to do a seller finance and you're trying to convince them that, hey, like I'm going to be able to perform and deliver on this.
Nice. Yeah. I have a question. Did you already close on the landscaping business?
We had the landscaping business basically up and running. Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Do you we like to do some deal breakdowns, sometimes on the podcast. Do you want to give us some numbers and where you found the deal first, and then I'll ask you some leading questions. Sure.
And just to give you color, still in the infancy, so nothing sexy with numbers at all.
Oh, it's even better.
Okay. So your question was, how did we get our first kind of, clients, if you will?
No, where did you find the deal? Okay. The business itself.
Oh, no. We started it from scratch.
Oh, you started from scratch.
Yeah. So one of the business partners, he's been doing it for a few years.
Okay. All right.
And so his challenge has been getting in front of really the movers and shakers, locally and such, people with apartments, people with memory care facilities, which is also really cool because you're doing the landscape, you get to know the managers, and then you get to know if they're going to liquidate the asset.
Oh,
and then I've been fortunate to kind of get exposure to the syndication world, as of course everyone and their mother has these days. Mm-hmm. So that being said, he had the landscape. Another buddy has the license, and then I brought the relationship. I actually introduced the two of them. So I was kind of the broker on it, and then I became a co-founder of it.
Okay. So now, did he already have a Google page, a Yelp page, or was he nothing? There's no, just word of mouth?
Exactly. Yeah. Just word of mouth. And that's why I was so excited to partner with him. And we're actually doing a podcast to ourselves. And as I've been sharing with him, hey, there's so many different things that we could do to really, be on people's radar, if you will, and get out there.
And then, so how much revenue was he bringing in before you got involved?
I think he was bringing in a little over 6 figures in revenue.
Okay, that's cool.
Still very small, still very kind of mom and pop. We have a few employees. Nothing. We're working on scaling that, of course.
Yeah, no problem. And then so he's just paying himself from that $100,000. Is that a net revenue or is it profit?
That's top line. So you've got him, and then you've got 2 to 3 other individuals on an as needed basis.
Okay.
So basically, if you kind of look at landscaping, what's kind of neat about the business, in my opinion, is it's a blue collar business, and everyone's shied away from that, of course, these days. And funny enough, even though I've had a very white collar background, I guess with the exception of kind of the military, I've actually leaned into that more. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. And I've got an uncle who owns commercial real estate, and he went a total, as blue collar as it gets route. And so I've really leaned on that, being the white collar professional in the blue collar world, but not being afraid to get his hands dirty, i.e., might get my hands dirty. But to answer your question, yeah, still in its infancy as far as really scaling it. So he's working outside the business more.
So he had it going for a couple of years, and then now you came in and you've been involved for a few months.
That's correct.
Okay, and then have you made any strides? I want to ask you, like, because I want the listeners to understand what you're doing as value add to this company. So if you're a partner, like I'm assuming what 40-50% owner or something like that.
Yeah, I've got I've got about a third ownership in the business.
So now you're using your clients and stuff that you've known through your networking events and stuff. So you're trying to use that to bring in some more revenue. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And when I was in commercial brokerage, I was operating out of Central California. I was with a team out of SF, and all the thousands, even though I got out of the business, it didn't work out as it does for a lot of people who are in commercial brokerage. Obviously, it's very different from residential. And so I have this literally in my, at least 1,500 owners in my phone. And, when I left, I was kind of bummed. And that's, when you make a pivot, and you're like, okay, I got to go to my next venture. And that was lending when I was in the private lender. But I kind of thought, what business can I do where it's somewhat AI resistant still?
I was just going to mention that.
Can't be outsourced. Yeah. And so, and that's been my thing is like, I didn't go to a name school, if you will, and I don't have pedigree per se, although I like to think that I've, done a thing or two for early 30s. But so it's like, I don't want to compete in a space where I'm competing with you're competing with top echelon people with incredibly deep connections. Not that I don't have those. I'd rather get in a space where I can absolutely just crush it. And, it's just different. And I'm starting to embrace that more, as I go about each day in life.
Nice. Drew, you actually had a landscaping thing going on with your stepdad, right? When you were a teenager?
I mean, yeah, no, I've been working since I was like old enough to push a mower. I was the landscaper. Yeah. I would be in there. I'd have the ride. I had this church job was one of my big ones. That was my big payday. But it would be like half the day, like just in a rider. And I had like all these other jobs by the time I had moved out. I grew up in Kansas, by the way, and just wanted freedom. That's my why. That's why I still work so hard. Is I want the freedom to be able to like call my mom and say, "Hey, mom, next Thursday we're going to go to Spain. Check the weather and pack a bag." That's the once when I hit that I'm good. Like any extra work I do is bonus. So the point is that freedom has always been my why. And so, I was landscaping. I had all my own little jobs. And had I stuck around in Kansas, which is where I'm from, I probably would have eventually like had an extra couple guys help me out. That's essentially what I did here with the music business instead and building a business. That's a passion of mine, is every working part of it. I don't know why. I love building it, creating it. So I could have a cocktail with you and talk about building that business for hours and be like super stoked to hear all the problems, all the wins. Like for whatever reason, I get off on that,
Yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh, no, no, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say his stepdad actually still does the landscaping for our properties.
He's the best.
Yeah. Oh, right on.
Yeah. What were
Kansas is a good market, I hear.
I have no idea,
Kansas
actually.
City.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kansas City is good, yes. Yeah, Kansas City is growing. But Kansas itself, not a lot of population growth. So you're going to see some of those linear markets. So you want to go cash flow, Ohio, Kansas City, and Indiana, those kind of properties. But what we've seen is you don't really see wealth if you go to those markets. It's more of a cash flow play. And then eventually people would want to get their money out. Like Rich Summers. I don't know if you know Rich Summers is from San Diego guy. He's selling his 11-unit building in Ohio. He's buying and doubling down in San Diego. He bought a hotel here. San Diego still has 700 short-term licenses still available.
Okay.
So if you buy something there, we could get the license and do short-term.
Nice. I know.
That was kind of cool. So let's get back to you, man.
Market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got this business going, and anything else you wanted to add with that, the landscaping business?
Yeah, I just think there's, again, a lot. I encourage people to look into businesses and such that are unsexy, unappealing, and find an opportunity to, basically be a white collar professional in that business. Now, obviously, you got to get down and dirty at times. And when I started the landscape business, and I learned this in the military, about leading from the front and such. And I actually went out there with the guys working, you believe it or not. And I'd never really messed with a weed whacker. I've never really mowed or done, edging and stuff. But I actually, went out there. I actually put on my old military boots and pair of jeans and was out there on a major threat, just kind of doing it just to be able to empathize and to relate. Because that was another thing that I learned, I feel like, in the military, was what happens is people in leadership roles, especially those some in officer roles, they have a hard time relating to the enlisted. And I think that delta, that difference, that creates so many problems naturally, right? When someone hasn't had to do the same thing because they're in a different bubble or world. And so I never want to be that guy where I'm telling someone to go do something and I'm not willing to do, or I've never even done the damn thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's like super important to, basically sweep and start from the bottom and so on and so forth.
Also, that's a supercharged play for building rapport with your team. And they're like, oh, he's out here doing it with us. Like, you have a beer with him. And it's like, now that you're just not some guy, barking orders and telling him where to be. It's like, oh, well, it's Christian. Like he's got this going on. And he came out that one day and got a gnarly sunburn. And, it's like, so I do the same thing actually with my team members. I just took one out to lunch today. It was her birthday earlier this week. And so I'll do little gestures like that to get that. Also, you get a different conversation than just your regular meetings. It's like you really start to learn what's really happening behind the scenes with them, with the business, with their perspective. And, but yeah, supercharging rapport is really helpful. That's been something that we've been having an issue with lately with our handyman is we have a virtual assistant, and we had some, a couple jobs that just kind of like fell apart. I'm like, her name is Nicole. It's like, Nicole, what's going on? How is this not handled? We have like 4 vendors that we can call for these jobs. She's like, I don't know. Like I reach out to them. I'm getting crickets. Someone's busy. And then I was going through it. And I realized she's not got a relationship with them. She doesn't call anybody and say hi. It's purely a phone call and a go do this. And I told her, okay, got it. Because I talk to everybody. I'm like, how's your day going? Can I get you a beer while you're working on it? Like I will actually do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they won't charge me. It's the funniest thing. I'm like, oh shoot. So point is I told her, make a little conversation first, build a little rapport, tell them who you are. I've already primed them, but tell them and then ask them for the job. It goes such a long way, especially with my guys they're good. So they're busy, so.
I completely agree. One of the things I wanted to share about ties in kind of with the book and my background. And this is from someone I actually struggled socially, growing up. I really didn't really have friends until really early 20s. I was definitely kind of a late bloomer. And I bring that up because, I have thus been able to, or at least I like to think, be able to get it and be able to meet a lot of amazing people. And one of the, to your point, Andrew, and there's a great quote I heard, and I wish I could pronounce the guy's name, but I heard him on a podcast. He said, IQ may operate the world, but EQ runs it. And I thought that's such a great point because society in my opinion, society places so much emphasis on, getting little Johnny or little so-and-so, exposed to, math or this in preschool or something at like an early age or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's one big, life is, I would liken it to kind of like a popularity / top of mind thing and just likability and it's a social intelligence side. I think that ultimately determines it. And, someone might have the more the analytical stuff, which is great. And we got to, that social part, to your point, is so important, and being able to relate and empathize and, absolutely critical.
Yeah, it's so much so that it's interesting that you went from being shy, not having a lot of friends, to writing a book about relationships. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I, early on in life, probably 5, 7, always been very, gregarious, outgoing. Wasn't the best with, making friends. I was kind of antagonistic as a kid. It's probably like 10, 11 years of age. And then went through a period of just kind of being reclusive. And then I, after, getting out of high school, just kind of got out of that being a reclusive period. But definitely was very challenging. And as it is for a lot of people, right? And, at times when you're growing up, but yeah, a lot of it's just really trial and error.
Gotcha. So lead me through that journey. Kind of what was happening? Was it your upbringing and what changed it?
Yeah, I talk about it a little bit in the book. So, my family probably isn't the most social. Growing up, we never really went out unless it was like a special occasion. And, socializing and such, even the parents was never really, there wasn't really a premium place on that. And sports also wasn't also played, in the household growing up. So, naturally, if you're not exposed to that, and you don't know how to play maybe football or basketball, and you're not really competent at it, then when it comes to lunchtime, you don't make the team, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, right, as you're a kid, people are playing outdoors, and that's really how you build your relationship. So that, coupled with being a little antagonistic, having a little bit of a mouthpiece, didn't help.
Mm.
And then that leads to you being kind of ostracized, or kind of doing your own thing. And then of course, if you and I dealt with anxiety, I really struggled with that, really up until recently. When that doesn't help too, if you're really struggling. So between the lack of socializing and then the lack of the academics that was going on with me, I really struggled, and quite frankly did not enjoy school at all. Which of course is a common theme with a lot of people who are self-employed.
Yeah.
It just after a while, just kind of going to college was kind of I don't want to say a culture shock, but it was a learned experience, because I was actually homeschooled. I was actually pulled out of school in my after my freshman year. The decision was made, hey, from a public school to doing like an online program, which is now the cool thing from what I hear. At the time, it was like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So you made quite a change. And what helped you to kind of go from there to now? Like, that's we met through what's called Newport Social Group, which I think you said you sold your share of.
Correct.
But yeah, there was just fun events that I had some former teammates, some lenders, who they knew I was already running. We were having our own meetups, and I would go to meetups here and there just to, network and see what happens. And everyone kept talking about the Newport Social Group. I was like, what is that? And then I just went to the next event. I actually ended up, making some really decent contacts right out the gate.
Sure.
That one was at the house or something like that. It's on the water.
Oh, yeah.
The restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a supper club. Yeah. We did the masquerade, and then we did what did we do? We did some other type of thing that was kind of that was fun. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, I can share that story too if you want. It's kind of an interesting story how that.
Sure.
So prior to I'd say 2021, 2020, I'd really never even heard of Newport Beach. Most people, when you grow up when you grow up in Central California, I'm from the Clovis area. Most people usually go to Monterey or Pismo or Morro Bay, along the coast when you want to go to the beach and such. Obviously, I'd heard of Orange County. I've only ever really just driven through it, and I was in commercial real estate at the time, and I went down there to go meet with some guys who owned apartments. And one of the guys I met down there, Matt Larson, he has got a shop called Promontory Investments. And anyhow, so he met up with me, and funny story, we met at Tommy Bahama's, and at first I was like, why are we meeting at a retail store? And I didn't realize it until I went there. I was like, okay, it's a bar, a restaurant. So anyhow, what was funny was he said, hey, you should really move down here. And I was like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful place here. But I'm already kind of locked in where I'm at. I don't want to uproot myself, right? Because with real estate, a lot of times, especially if you're a broker, you're geographically constrained, especially right if you're showing property. And and then that coupled with doing a little bit of research, I'm still interested in doing development, which I will do eventually, reading about Donald Bren and a lot of stuff he's done, which is really incredible. Whether people love him or hate him, what he's done with the Irvine Company, I think is pretty remarkable. And so that really, put Newport, if you will, in that area on the radar. So to answer your question with the social group, I went down to work at a family office as a private lender. Well, lo and behold, as the rates went up, I got cut.
Oh yeah.
And, and it just so happened at that time. And by the way, when I moved down there, I didn't know a damn soul. I didn't know anybody in Orange County, nobody, nothing. And so, but I knew that I wanted to go down there and I wanted to meet a lot of people. And I made a friend, and one thing led to another. He invited me to his birthday, and he basically took a party bus from the peninsula down to Del Mar, where the horse races are, and that was the impetus. That was the inspiration for the first social group event. And we did a yacht event where we cruised around, and we got it pretty much sponsored. And then I conveyed to him. I said, "Hey, let's go do another one." This was the one we did at Harbor Ridge at an estate. And he was like, he wasn't so inclined to do that. And I was kind of like, oh, I guess that's it. And then my former business partner, she's awesome. Shailene, she entered the scene, really planets alignment. And just long story short, that was the birth of the social group. So we really got it up and going.
And so the first event was on a yacht, or it was the horse race?
The first event was on a yacht. The horse race was the inspiration because I felt like, and I think most people would agree, after the pandemic, people were sick and tired of being bottled up. So having something where people can socialize, and today, even though we're all connected through social media and such, it's wonderful. I've been able to meet some amazing people would never previously meet. But then again, it's only so deep. Whereas the in-person, is obviously meeting in the flesh is, just a different experience.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, then it grew the social group, and it just went from like, wow, this is, I think this has some good bones here. And then we had another person enter the scene. He wanted to invest, which he did, and he was absolutely instrumental in getting it going. And people, I think, want communion. They want to have more of that relationship that I think really lacks today.
Have you thought about investing in real estate and taking advantage of all of those benefits without any of the work? That is something that OnV Invest not only provides, but has been providing since its inception. With friends and family, we have built an empire and a system of a wealth generating tool that is giving us and our friends and family that leverage in their life to create true wealth. Go to onvinvest.com for more to see if you qualify. And thanks for listening.
And the whole point was to help build and deepen your connections in the scene, or was it profit? Was it both?
All the above. So it started off with, hey, let's just have fun. And I think that's like the best business,
Sure.
right? Is when it starts off with just, hey, let's just have fun. And then I thought, well, hey, we could turn this into a business model where, people maybe pay a monthly fee to be a part of it, so on and so forth. And then I thought, well, there's a business source. I really enjoy it. I love meeting people. And you just have some amazing experiences. I've literally gotten to meet some just incredible people, people that you see on TV and such, just through meeting one person. And then next thing you know, you're on a phone call and you're talking to so-and-so. Like, oh, what a small world.
Is there an example you can give us?
Yeah, so for one of the events, we needed a sponsor, or a beverage sponsor. And one of the guys that we had on our board, NSG, Newport Social Group, used to have a board. He said, hey, you need to talk to this housewife. She's got a vodka company, Elizabeth Vargas, Vargas Vodka. Great vodka, by the way. And he said, hey, you need to get in touch with her. I went to her. She said, hey, I'm interested. Long story short, we kind of built a relationship. And she said, hey, I mentioned to her, I was in the Navy because I was helping her with some veteran cause that she was doing. She said, hey, my business partner was in the Navy. So who's your business partner? John Paul DeJoria, of Patron, and John Paul Mitchell. He sold Patron for a few billion. Mm-hmm. She just, calls him up, and I'm chit-chatting and stuff. And so when you have that experience, it just makes the world small. And
that's wild.
It's really, it was pretty cool. And it's crazy to think he was in the Navy. And for those who don't know his story, it's incredible. He was, he was homeless, and, he was in a gang at one time. He grew up in, I think it was Echo Park. He was born. He grew up around Echo Park, and just an incredible guy. But, just things like that, or, up in, Pelican Hill, Pelican Crest here, meeting some of the business people that you'd see on TV there. And it's just like, wow. I mean, and we're all a couple of degrees of separation from literally everyone in the world.
Yeah, totally. And one person, like you're saying, can change the whole game for you. Absolutely. Yeah. That's wild, man. So you got sponsors for some of these events. And so at least it sounds like it was at least breaking even, if not making a little bit of profit. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely more of a, the real value was in the social capital. I mean, without a doubt. And it's funny, I actually had a mentor tell me, he was like, hey, I don't know why you did this business. He didn't know what happened. I just shared with him, I created this thing, and then, decided to pivot to another more lucrative business, if you will.
Yeah.
But he said, hey, well, it wasn't lucrative. I said, I agree with you. Just like, what do they say in sales all the time? They say, always agree. I said, I agree with you. But the relationships that I built, you can't put a price on that. I mean, and ultimately, I think that's the highest form of currency, because you can literally lose your shirt, lose everything, as happens to developers out there. But you have your relationships and you got your mind, you can get yourself out of it. Whereas the guy who's maybe really well off, but despised or doesn't have any context because he's chosen to be a recluse or not be on social or not put himself out there.
Yeah.
Just like the man in the arena. I love that. I love that. What is it? Like a poem?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's such a powerful quote. Everyone loves to judge and like, well, this person did this and that. Well, at the end of the day, that person's out there putting themselves out there. I don't care who you are, or what you do. I mean, my hat's off to you if you're putting yourself out there.
Dare to dare greatly, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a question, man. So people listening, this is more selfish. It's just for us.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's say I think everybody should have, they should go to a meetup or start one. So we have a meetup, right? Mm-hmm. So what would you advise people who are starting to meetups or even going to one? Like, what would you do to grow your network? Like what different things would you do? Are you opening up a new Instagram page? Are you advertising on Facebook? Or you just, everybody you meet, you're telling them about the meetup group? So how is it going?
Yeah. And so I think first off, this was kind of the thesis of my book, The Fastlane of Building Relationships. In my opinion, short of being, unless you're a celebrity, or what have you, if you don't know anybody, and especially I could be parachuted into a new market. I don't know, but I have the blueprint in my mind. I know exactly what I need to do to get in front of the main movers and shakers locally. And the fastest way to do that, and this is again, the backdrop of the book that I published, was put into these social experiences together. And it could be something as simple as maybe you don't have a house, maybe you got an apartment, but invite people. And it starts off, maybe you go to the restaurant, you go to a popular restaurant, you sit at the bar, you go there every day, which I did. And then you get to know the staff, and then you get to know everybody. And then you walk in and everyone starts to know you, even though you're the new guy. You've only been in town maybe a month or two. And then you start to figure out who's who. And you're taking care of your bartenders, you're taking care of the servers and such. Then they start opening up their Rolodex to you. And so if you start inviting people to something, I think that is hands down the best way to build the relationships. And it's as simple as, hey, you got some hors d'oeuvres, you got some beverages, and then it could be as opulent as what we've done, right, with the social group, yachts, estates and such. And without being redundant, to get more germane to your question, again, it just boils down to being a resource and being a little different. I feel like a lot of people that I meet, it's very transactional. And I think it's more important to go deep when you're someplace rather than try and spread yourself out and meet a million people. Maybe go deep with a few people.
Yeah.
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 And follow up.
Yeah. Yeah, we always tell people. In fact, in our meetups, I put on bigger podcasts when I say, "Hey, if you're kind of the guy who loves to come and hand out business cards to people and not have eye contact, don't come. Like, this is not your meetup. We're all about like very close group and stuff." Yeah,
yeah.
I literally had someone do that one time. He showed up 30 minutes early, and then he came, and it was literally like clockwork, like just giving the cards. And this guy was probably 55, 60 years old. And I'm like thinking, what the hell's going on? Like you do not do that. And obviously there's a little bit of finesse that's required. I mean, there's knowing when, obviously that's the social IQ people have to tap into, but it's always amazing to me to meet people even 20, 30, 40 years older than me. And again, I'm no guru. I'm not perfect. I've got my flaws, but meeting people who say or do things that put their foot in their mouth, you know, and it's just incredible. And I observed from a buddy, he's 75. He's out of Orange County, great guy. But one of the things I picked up on from him recently is it's as cheesy and as simple as it gets. He's always smiling, and he makes people feel like $1 million, and he always has a sense of humor. And he didn't tell me this. He visited me. I'm in Clovis at the present moment. He visited me. We went out to some restaurants and such, and I just picked up his energy. And it was like $1 million lesson I learned right there, to be a little more upbeat, to not be so like, business or you know what I mean? More, just be more jovial. Yeah. And, I mean, and it's clearly worked for him because he's done very well for himself.
That's like a baseline of value, if you will. I mean, the world works on system of value, right? And so that's what I tell people I host events myself, and I'll get guys who get in their head and they're like, well, should I bring this? Should I bring some girls? I'm like, yeah, you can bring whatever, but like baseline, just bring good energy. That's it. Like bring a smile, have a good time, relax. Don't be the guy handing out business cards aggressively. Like I respect the hustle. Like, yes, I get it. You're going for it, but wow, you're missing the mark. You don't understand how it works, So unfortunately that guy's hopefully adjusted his business plan. But yeah, that simple notion of just have good vibes, which sounds maybe silly when you say it that way, but it's baseline importance for creating value in someone else's life, therefore creating a connection. And then who knows? Could be a business, could be a partnership, could be a landscaping business,
I completely agree. And, being in an area that's got kind of more of a Midwest culture, if you will, compared to a major metro, you think of kind of like, not to stereotype New York, but you think of like some of these major cities where there's so many people. I'm liking to think that people feel they can kind of get away, if you will. They don't need to be as cordial or warm. But if you're in a smaller town, or you can't get away with that, right? You're held accountable. And I think there's something to be said about being in an environment that's, where it's down to earth, it's rooted, and obviously there, and look, I love Southern California, and it's, my second home. I kind of split my time between the two. But yeah, to your point, you don't need to have any capital to the table. You don't even need to have all this knowledge. Just simply being, in my opinion, likable, and then connecting people. Yep. I mean, anyone can do that.
It's interesting. I was listening to you guys talk, and I was thinking, over the years, Drew and we've actually, you tell me if this is also in your book, is we've kind of, I think Drew's always been like this, but I was a little different. I was more like cracked out, like always, like I'm trying to do the next deal. I'm always trying to talk to people about like raising capital and stuff like that. Over the years, I kind of learned, I don't really want to do this. This is not fun. So what I started doing is I just, we started our podcast and we talk about stuff here, and we started having meetups, and we talk about what we do and what we bring value. And then we don't even do anything else after that. And then we wait for people to come to us, because what we were doing before was we were like, talking to people who were not in the right mindset or in the right place and time, to listen and get advice. And I'm just, you keep doing that and you get annoyed, and, it's not good. It's not fair for both parties. So now what we do is we sit back, hey, meetup's free, come hang out, talk to us for free. We charge $400 an hour, but it's free. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, what do you guys do? Oh, we buy real estate. Oh, wait, so do you partner with people? Yeah, we partner with people. And then, they're more curious, and, that's kind of the style that we like to operate in. Is that kind of like how you teach too in the books?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I talk about is having a reason to reach out to somebody. I suspect for a lot of people, it boils down to two things. The first one being, they don't know how they should engage with somebody. And I struggle with this, and I had to learn this in brokerage when I'm cold calling, and which is a lot of people don't like doing. And so when I'm calling up multifamily owners and such, I had to learn how to, and I'm always learning, I'm always pivoting and changing my script, if you will. But finding a way to deliver your message. And then the second one, I'm trying to get my train of thought back. Having a good reason. putting on the social events, it gave me the best reason in the world to engage with people. I could be walking down the street in Fashion Island. I could be, at a restaurant or whatever, and I have the best excuse for just, well, who the hell doesn't want to go on a yacht? Or who the hell doesn't want to go enjoy this or that? It's such a great way. And there's a chapter in my book I talk about wearing conversation, simple things like maybe you're into golfing, so you wear a golf hat, or maybe you're walking your dog around CDM or something. Now, that's a great reason for people to engage with you, right? Because they want to go pet the golden doodle or whatever you have. And so it's making yourself obviously accessible, put yourself out there. So I think in a roundabout way, I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's smart though. Just to touch on what you said initially with the yacht, like you're leading with value. You're leading with like, who doesn't want to come on a yacht? Like, come on, so it's like this exclusive thing. And that's a really brilliant way to also, since you're the host, like, well, who is this guy? Now they want to connect with you and connect their friends. It's brilliant. I love it. It's something I'm starting to do a little bit more. I've got a birthday coming up that is like an invite only thing. I might have sent you an invite. This will come out after the first, but yeah, I basically am hosting this big event at my house. And I'm doing a thing where I'm giving it to charity, and I've got a live band. I've got a DJ, bartender. It's a whole thing, photo op. And I'll even have a door guy, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but it's because I want everybody to make sure that they've registered. So that way I can deliver on the value that I promised all these vendors who are doing it either for free or for really cheap. And that is, hey, I'm going to have like 100 people. That's 100 emails. And I'm going to be promoting. I'll not only make a video of me donating, some money to the charity, but also a big shout out to Christian's Landscaping Company, the bartender's company, whatever it might be. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm just starting to see the power of that. It's my first time really doing it at this level. And what I'm doing is I'm leading with value though. I'm not just asking, hey, hit me with a discount because I just want it. It's, hey, you can cut that price a little bit down. I will do this for you, which hopefully will mean way more business, times 10.
Yeah. And to circle back to real estate, I have really embraced the creative side of things, of how to structure things more so in the real estate deals. I mean, I think you guys could attest to the experience of, calling an agent, particularly maybe a residential agent who is representing a commercial property, if you will. And a lot of them are not familiar with, the nuances of real estate. You mentioned about, a subject to or a wraparound, or you mentioned, other forms of accomplishing an objective, and it goes right over the head. And I've had enough of those call sets.
Yeah.
And so I try and structure things too like that. And one of the things that, again, going back to the Noah Kagan, his book was great, is he always makes the ask. I've noticed, whether it's freebies, whether it's discounts, and just get in the habit of, like he always says in his videos, go up to the coffee, barista, tell her or him, hey, I want to get, can I get 10% off my coffee? It's just a simple exercise. And I love that. And a lot of people don't, and I'm guilty of not having done it. I'm trying to do a better job at it, of just asking and just saying, hey, can we do this? I'll call on properties that, maybe I wouldn't get financing on a conventional way, but hey, if I put down 6 figures and that I know this thing is going to be cash flowing on day one, what do you say we make this work here? And just structuring things of that nature, instead of just, it didn't fit in here, I can't qualify for the financing for this, so therefore I can't get it. Well, I like to think that in most cases in life, there's usually a way, and it's usually either a loophole or something that the person's not aware of that really could be doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of money's left on the table, in my opinion, not just in deals, but also in relationships, because people are not willing to put themselves out there, even ask.
Yeah, totally agree. I love that concept he talks about. I don't think I've read that book, but I remember actually listening to the podcast when he was on Tim Ferriss's show. That's where I know the name. I've not picked up the book quite yet, but yeah, I was really impressed with just like that simple. That's something I'm personally working on. He does it really well. He negotiates like everything. And I'm starting.
But I am Indian though. So.
He is Indian, so it comes with the territory. And so I'm just now starting to adapt that, because I come from the other end where I'm used to charging like a kind of a premium for a service. And I just I don't even like people who haggle, but I respect it and I totally get it now. Like now that I'm on the other side, it's not, there's no harm in asking, you're not offending anybody. You're just like, hey, Is there any way you can hook me up? 10% off. And to be respectful, of course, having that level of EQ as we were discussing previously. But yeah.
Can I negotiate a coffee maker and a one pillowcase?
Oh yeah. He's talking about an issue. So we run multiple MTRs in the area. And we had a guest all of a sudden vanish with the coffee maker.
And one pillowcase.
And up at just one.
Yeah.
Not two. Anyways, inside joke.
This is life.
Yeah. Never ends.
Yeah. I mean, there's it's amazing. And I just got this book. I'm turning as much as I can. This is the latest book I picked up. I don't know if you could see it or if it's blurry up. There you go.
Tools of Argument.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this is, a book written by lawyers on basically how to think, argue, and win.
Nice.
And, as they say, we're all in sales. And I laugh every time I hear someone say, well, I'm not in sales. I don't like sales. People. I'm like, bullshit.
We're all in sales.
You don't even realize it.
Yep. Yeah. I think learning sales skills and negotiation skills is crucial, fundamental, just as a person, not even as a real estate guy, entrepreneur guy, everything. Those two skills are paramount.
I feel obviously there's a lot of stuff that they don't teach, and it's really a shame in school. But to your point, I think the most important things is just basic financial literacy, and then the sales and understanding a little bit about marketing. Everything else that can be learned later on. And one of the books that I like, and some people love them, some people hate them, but this is probably my favorite book that Cardone put out. If you can,
I love that.
Oh, Vince loves Cardone.
Yeah. This book here, it's 100 different closes. I've done my best to commit to memory, because the last thing I want is to be caught with my pants down and I'm on the phone with somebody, and because I wasn't prepared for their possible objection, that I lost that deal. I lost that opportunity. Because when we're making calls to people, it's those few seconds, we're just buying more time, especially when it's a cold call with an owner. We're buying that time. We're trying to build that rapport. And then, objection comes up. Well, I got a mortgage on there, so I can't do seller financing.
Right.
Well, what if we do a subject to? Well, it's a subject to. Well, then I start to unpack it. Yeah. But I always make the objective just trying to meet with them in person, if at all possible, first.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Negotiation's always easier in person. All that, anything. I kind of have a rule where if there's any kind of not conflict, I guess definitely a conflict, or if there's a negotiation, if I can get them in person, that's, obviously the best. Second best is video, and then it's phone. I literally will. I just closed a client today, a coaching client, and I insist. I could have called him, but I insist on sending him the Zoom link. It took me all of like 10 minutes. We did a quick recap. Boom. And that was it. But it's the power of seeing and hearing and having nothing go, kind of under the radar, especially via text or email. I can't tell how many interactions have gone awry because they just didn't quite get that. Oh, he was making a joke here or what have you,
Yeah. It's just incredible. And I feel like everybody needs to at least have just basic closes down, like just basic stuff down. That'll give someone a huge advantage.
Yep. Love it. Yeah. I got some good. You're a reader, readers, or is it leaders or readers?
Yeah. Something like that.
One.
I want to be respectful of your time. So usually, we end on some notes or comments or, since you, I think you're a good guy to ask because you're out there talking to a lot of people. What is the sentiment out there, like in terms of economy and people like winding down, saving, stuff, or you think people are still out spending cash, and where do you see like the real estate market going to?
Well, I think a lot of people are getting crushed right now.
Okay.
I think between inflation and I say this because of the influx of inquiries I get from people, because I have ads up, part of my pre-selling in advance to check them, I have people willing to rent a bed for over here, the market's obviously different. $500 for a bed, even $700 for just one bed, sharing a room with 2 or 3 other people of the same gender. And people are getting squeezed. And then of course the housing shortage, credit card debt is the highest it's been in some time. And of course you've got Ukraine going on, you've got the Hamas Israeli conflict going on. What else we have going on? Just all the stuff. So I'm inclined to think that people are kind of cutting back. And the market, as much as I, had a crystal ball, of course, I feel like we're going to be okay this year, at least. I feel like we're going to be okay. Of course, especially with it being an election year, I don't foresee any type of major, unless and I follow the Ukraine conflict a decent amount each day, unless something kicks off and NATO decides to, join Ukraine on the front lines or something crazy like that. Other than that, I just I don't see a war with China or anything. Obviously that would impact our economy and therefore the real estate market. I don't see any black swan kind of things like that going on.
A good thing to, talk about would be, I've never had a year, I'm 38, in my entire life where I went, this is a great year and a nice, easy year to invest in something. It is always, people are always trying to kill the Israelis. Russia has been fighting Cold War with us, and there's always stuff going on. There's COVID. Oh, my mom's sick. I would have bought this house, but my dog got sick, so I had to take it to the hospital. Like people are always having these things. So in an environment where there's always negative stuff going on, how do you tell people who are, oh, I don't know, I'm always scared to do the next deal or the first deal? What would be your comment there?
Yeah, my comment would be, after, doing your due diligence, of course, bouncing it off of people, even if you got to pay someone to get the advice, go in prepared. But then at some level, you're never going to be fully prepared. I'll use for a quick example. My intention for going to the Navy was to get into the special warfare community. And I had a SEAL as a mentor. This isn't even part of the Navy at all. I had a mentor, working out, training. I have all the resources. I've been very blessed to have the family that and the resources that I've had access to growing up. And it didn't work out for me. I didn't make it. Buds is what I talk about. The SEAL training. And what I'm saying is you might prepare and do everything you can, but you show up and you get just what Mike Tyson said. You get punched in the face. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and you're like, oh shit. And as they say, you learn more from failure than you do from things working. And I tell you what, I learned a shit ton. I got my ass handed to me, and that really shaped me and really shook my psyche. And I'm saying that is, ultimately you can do as much as you can to prepare, but you just got to do it. And here's the other thing is, I think this is super cheesy because everyone and their mom says it, but you're much more capable. They'd always say this in the military. You're a lot more capable than you really even imagine. I think until you're put in a situation that's very austere, like where it's full on anxiety, that's when it's like, you just figure it out. You go into this mode, that this recess in your mind that you didn't know exists. So I think that there's an element of when you put yourself out there, you're like, fuck, this is, whether it's a financial risk or a social risk or a risk or whatever, it tends to work out, right? Because you just figure it out. Your brain just like you're hyper focused, you get tunnel vision. So there's an element to that I think people need to remember. And I always have to remind myself.
Yeah. No, I love that kind of shoot from the hip. That's essentially kind of how we started. We made a lot of mistakes and, got out clean because of appreciation. But, it was one of those journeys where I actually started my music school and bought real estate in the same year, which I do not advise doing. And, but the reason, and people are always very complimentary of what I've achieved. And cause I used to be a waiter, and they're like, what is happening? You're doing real estate in this business. And it's because I kind of just like raised my bar of like what it is I wanted my life to be. Like I said, it just really comes back down to the freedom thing. And also navigating, seeing like where I could probably serve the most value for the least amount of output, if you will. And so point is built those knowing that I would make mistakes, knowing that I would get punched in the mouth, and figuring it out. And the reason why I think I was able to do it is because my standard of how I wanted to live was higher than my fear of failing at trying. And I that was just one of those things. I lost a brother in a car wreck 20 years ago as well. And that fuels that, because I know it could be any day. It could be tomorrow. Like, we don't actually know. So it also pushes me to just go for it. Approach the girl, start the business, ask for the 10% off or whatever it might be. And for me, that's always helped, knowing that no matter what, at least I'm going to try. And at the end of the day, I know I'm resourceful. I'll figure it out. I'll outwork the problem. And that's been a lot of our journey as real estate investors.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had several mentors, and a couple of offhand lost everything. Two of them from divorce. One gentleman, he's in Big Canyon. For those who aren't aware where that is, it's in Newport Beach for the listeners. And he told me that after a divorce, he lost everything, and he was out in Riverside on someone's couch, no AC, and having to start from scratch. And then,
Wow.
and now I don't know how much of this was embellished or whatever. He's an older guy, but he, according to what he told me, he went over to, I think it was like Singapore or Asia, one of these growing, burgeoning markets. He went to the finest hotel. He gave the guy a very generous tip. I mean, just out of the world tip. He said, I want to talk to this person for this real estate thing. And according to him, he got in front of that person because that bell guy or that greeter, I don't know, some 5-star hotel, right? He knew everybody, and he was able to build himself out from there. And then another gentleman, he lost twice from 2 divorces, and he made 7 figures last year. So, I think a lot of it is you just you figure it out. You just find a way, and yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of those stories. That's what helps us to kind of push through the fires that come up as you navigate and scale your real estate portfolio. And that helps me a lot. But something I try to actively do is, because I know you're a reader, this will relate. I try to read a biography or autobiography of, say, like Elon Musk. Right now it's Jeff Bezos. It's called the Bezos Letters. Really, really good principles in that. And that also helps you to kind of, remember, oh, that's right. Like these guys got their face caved in by millions of dollars at times and put it all on the line. Yeah. And I'm worried about whatever it might be, a new city regulation or something like that, so.
Yeah. I just finished J. Paul Getty's book, which I really enjoyed, and I learned a lot from. And I'm actually working on that. I had it next to me. Oh, I did. I'm working on Andrew Carnegie's autobiography.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. I believe he came from nothing over in Scotland and put a dent in the universe. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Is that the Win Friends guy? Or is that a different Carnegie?
No, he's the one with the steel company. He was one of the first like obnoxiously rich guys in the whole.
He's pretty poor, right?
I think he grew up super poor. I believe. I don't actually remember.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Christian, for your time. I do want to also plug, your businesses, your book as a way of saying thanks for your time and contributing to the knowledge of our listeners. What's your book title? How can we find it?
Yeah, the book is titled The Fastlane to Building Relationships, and it can be found on Amazon, and all the proceeds of the books goes to a veterans charity.
Love that.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I didn't touch about the mixed use concept that I have that I think more people ought to be aware of, but I guess in a nutshell, if you'd like, I can just kind of unpack it.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically, the model that I have is buying a property that is zoned in such a way that allows for you to do basically whatever you want, but with no more within an hour's distance of a major city. And you're buying it with already a home on there with some acreage. The home allows you can obviously rent it out right away, either by the room, whether that's by the bed, by the room, or by the house, right, to offset your expenses, your mortgage, and then leveraging agricultural tax credits. And by that, what I'm saying is you don't need to even be Farmer John. You could just simply put, Andrew, I know you might know this from, Kansas and such, but, putting like bees on the property to reduce your tax basis, and, or putting some type of organic niche thing where you're not competing with Foster Farm, but you're doing something very niche for a high-end audience. So you've got on this property, you've got housing, you've got agriculture, such that helps with the taxes and such. And then you've got a storage area there. And then you've got a space on the property. Maybe you have a little pond where you have a barn that's converted into like this luxury boho style wedding venue or photography place or a studio. And then if your property is adjacent to a major thoroughfare, then you put on a monument sign, like a digital billboard you can generate revenue from. So I've been spending a lot of time underwriting all these properties where you can come up with all these different revenue sources. And the properties I'm looking at are 30 minutes from Yosemite. So I'm capitalizing on the global tourism audience that goes to Yosemite every year. I'm also targeting the locals, many of whom are, like much of the country and the world, dealing with this housing shortage. And I can make revenue from so many different line items. And my goal is to have this property produce $25,000 in cash flow each month. And so I'm starting off with the housing. Yeah, that's my goal. And I know that's very out there, grandiose, but that's, but getting something that's big enough, and that's through all these different revenue sources. And then I'm looking at converting tough sheds, insulating them, putting on solar. I got a buddy with a solar company, and turning them into tiny homes. And if I need to, turn them into a THO, so like obviously a tiny home on wheels, and doing modular, like all sorts of different stuff. And again, because of where it's zoned and because I'm kind of out of sight, out of mind, I don't have to deal with neighbors. And also retreats. I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how, as an entrepreneur, how can I fill those needs? And I think of right now, the biggest things in our society, especially us millennials, is housing for a lot of people. I think mental health is a big thing. That's something I really struggled with growing up. And then what was the other thing? That, and then just being healthy. And I think you could tap into doing kind of like a retreat. And in lieu of you paying someone, you give someone who can run your businesses there, right? So you're working outside the business, so you're not having to manage your bees, right? For your ad, or manage a wedding venue. You just outsource it, and you can work something out. This is where the creative deal structuring, right? Hey, I'll give you a place to live, or half off rent if you can keep an eye on this. And so now you're able to scale and you're able to grow. But I like this mixed use thing I'm starting to learn into, and that's what I'm focused on.
That's cool. So that's your plan for the next deal to go?
Because I'd be doing apartments, but it's so congested. The prices have gone up, right? And everyone does the multifamily. They do the buy a home, rent it out. But obviously the margins are nil. They're so thin. I'm trying to think of other creative things, and that's what prompted me to. Because I wanted to do the sober living, you need enough parking at a house. Then you need to have people who are okay with having people who are transitioning sobriety to live there. And then I thought, why not just buy property where no one's going to bitch and complain? And then you can have them, have as many people as you want. You can have as many homes as you want. Obviously, you've got permits and zoning depending on how kosher you want to be. But
sure.
There's all these different revenue sources. That's what excites me. Plus, it's almost like a homestead thing where if shit hit the fan, and this is like a inner kid in me or whatever. I like the concept of being completely self-sufficient, and I don't need to depend on anybody for anything.
It is actually really interesting what you're talking about is, Christian, is you're talking about how the real estate market itself is maturing. Do you guys know what like a mature asset is? Like, for example, stocks. It's pretty mature. So the more and more it is, it's more popular, people come in, it becomes more safer, and your returns become smaller because it's pretty safe. Like Newport Beach is safer than Bakersfield. So Newport Beach returns will be lower, right? However, when you start doing like interesting things like, I can add stuff, and that's not very efficient. Not a lot of people do that. So there's a lot more to gain from that. Yeah. So that's why we went from long-term to short-term. Short-term was very saturated, it's very management intensive. So we're moving to a more luxury mid-term rental, like in Tennessee. That's where we like our sweet spot. It's not very well versed in the investor field. I think it will get saturated pretty soon. So we hopefully will have our things figured out by then.
And I also wanted to add there real quick. Do we have another minute?
Yeah, sure, man.
Okay. I wanted to mention, in my opinion, one of the best ways if someone's an entrepreneur and you're starting out, or no matter whether you're on a W-2 or not, I think one of the fastest ways to be quote unquote financially free, even if you're making only a modicum amount. And obviously this is going to work for somebody who's living in Brooklyn or who's living in a major city. You got to be a little bit outside of it for prices, but just buying a property, even if it has a double wide or something, like who cares? Like you just buy something and then you rent it out, and then you put another property on there. So now you're covering your mortgage. Then you have your food and such. Obviously, this is not everyone wants to do this or get dirty, but I'm just saying hypothetically here, someone could live off the land. They've got renters there. They're paying the mortgage. They're able to pay the property taxes. They've got food there. They've got solar. Maybe you're collecting rainwater. Obviously, it's illegal in some areas to collect rainwater, which I find crazy, but then
That's
again, I
wild.
understand because you're taking away from the water table. That's the rationale.
That's the dumbest thing I've heard in my life.
That's definitely a California thing.
You know where all the water goes in California? Fucking ocean.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna catch you for rainwater. This is why we are like useless, like freaking morons.
Mhm.
You know, like
Well,
one of the other thing I know I always rant about this. You know, California, one of the MO is like we want to fix housing, we want to help homeless people have homes, right? So we have multiple homes, and a couple of our homes in Orange County, they said, oh, you know, you don't have permits and your wall is 4 inches off. So they want to break the whole house and then make a new wall. I'm like, hey, we have actually a pregnant mom living there. They're like, yeah, she could be homeless, who also got kicked out of her own home. It's like, this is just like crazy. These guys are nuts.
It pisses me off so much. I'm like, you freaking knuckleheads. I'm like, you want to address this quote unquote housing shortage, yet you don't do a damn thing about it. And you want to rake people over the coals with all these fees and stuff. That makes it cost prohibitive. I mean, I could literally right now go to Home Depot or whatever, get a tough shed. And look, I'm not even a contractor. I can hire people to do it. I can go on YouTube or whatever. You can get that going. You get a compostable toilet, so you don't even need a septic system. And then you can bring in water if you need to, if you don't have a well. You could do solar. I mean, there's so many different things people do, but it's mired in, and again, they don't really want to help people. But I can go off on a tangent. I also think, you know, historically, the world up until early 1900s was agrarian based. And you know, now everybody is so dependent on the tit of you know, the government and other things, which obviously there's a time and a place for that. I'm not knocking anyone who has received that. Anyhow, but yeah, I just think it's a joke, because I could easily have 100 people on a property and I'd be cash flowing like crazy, and I'd be helping them out, and it'd still be economical for them.
Well, you should definitely consider, you know, red states. That's something that was a big play for us, is doubling down on red states with less red tape, ironically. So, I mean, you know, California is where we started, where we built our initial empire, and I don't regret it, but we've just, we're getting pushed out with just so much regulation, and it's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to sell it, and we're going to put literally that same money into Tennessee, for instance, or Georgia, whatever.
Well, it's almost like a neo-feudalism. I mean, in a sense where you've got kind of like a fiefdom or a manor house. You got people, tenants, sharecroppers working the land. And then you have the bureaucrats, or you have the...
Are you building a castle? Are you a king? Where's the moat?
You know, it's funny. Is actually
that's the name of the podcast. Yeah. Christian White builds a castle.
Yeah. It's funny. Is
he has a drawbridge to his house.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's funny is I also thought of other ideas. I thought of, you know, how can I juice the returns on a property, but do something really different? And I'm not necessarily, I grew up, Lord of the Rings. I've always enjoyed the movies as a kid, you know, when those were on, but I thought about not that others had done this. I know there's a couple of hobbit holes, but doing like these like themed midterm rentals or themed kind of things that are kind of unique and different. Like, let's say, just something that's different that stands out, because everyone does the same shit by and large.
Yes.
And so I think if we could do something different, and to your point, kind of like the little fiefdom thing, that is kind of a sense what I'm doing. I've got the housing, I've got the food, you know, people can actually work the business with the ag component.
I love that. Yeah. And then partner and hire it out and profit share. It's brilliant. Something that you're hitting on, by the way, is something that Airbnb is really now promoting huge. And that is icons, where they are now selling experiences. They had a lot of luck in the last Blockbuster, which is up in Bend, Oregon. I've actually been to it. And they converted it from a video store. It's now an Airbnb that you can rent. And it's like decked out in like 90s, the television set.
But does it have a 100-inch TV?
It does not. Definitely not. But it's like everything about it like takes you to that like era. And apparently it's extremely profitable. I don't actually know the numbers, but you're touching on something, that theme, that novelty, that experience, especially in these, you know, the Instagram world, especially in this world where it can be a little bit sterile, in my opinion. I think people are craving that. So I think you're onto something.
And I got inspired. My brother's into kind of like blacksmithing kind of stuff. He's really into like medieval and all that. And I thought, you should lean into that passion that you have. And I said, you should look at getting property where you can do that. You can kind of create this thing, because there's a niche audience, I told them, out there, and you don't need to have 1 million people who want to do that. You just need a handful of people, and they want to go experience it, and that's what's cool.
Yep. Yeah, that's right, man. That's the one good thing about this digital age where everything's accessible across the world. Like I've got clients in the Netherlands and China, which is cool. And but my point is that just means that because we're all now so connected, you can niche down super hard, like really ridiculous. So blacksmithing, like I never would have thought about that. But there's a loyal audience thirsty for content and an experience that would involve that for sure. So
all the digital stuff, I think we're going to see more and more of a renaissance that people want to get more in touch with earlier, how to get more tangible, more working with the earth and all that. And I think there's a lot of money to be made in that too.
Agreed. Yeah, that's great.
So,
wow, man, good conversation.
Yeah,
it was fun talking with you, bro. We'll have to figure out how to
awesome. Yeah.
slice that in. That was the best part.
Yeah.
So
it's always the best part. Off stock.
Yeah. Thanks, Christian.
Awesome.
We'll let you go. Have a good Memorial Day weekend, man. Thanks again for your service, brother.
Oh, absolutely. Don't mention it. And thank you so much for having me on. Real honor.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
Take care, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
I don't know about you, but I definitely like to see 5-star reviews on any service or any product before I purchase. Please take a second to leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening to it on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or whatever platform. Take a second, goes a long way, helps us a lot to grow the channel, and thanks for listening.